Believe it or not, there have actually been quite a few metagame shakeups that have come to the Regulation MA format of Pokemon Champions. So today I want to do a quick catch-up video about basically just what's going on in Regulation MA and give you guys a little bit of a rundown of two very popular teams that are running around, and you can even count it as three. I'm going to call it three teams. We're going to talk about three teams that are currently very popular in Regulation MA, as they have either won a tournament or are just kind of running around on ladder like these days. So yeah, I am planning on doing daily uploads now. If you don't know, you're still going to get the three really good videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I do want to just talk about Pokemon Champions on my main channel. I am a competitive Pokemon channel, and I feel like I've been kind of skirting my responsibilities. So let's go ahead and talk about the metagame. This won't be a super edited video. In fact, I don't know if there's going to be much editing at all. Maybe some presentation stuff. Let's just get right into it. If you guys enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, become a YouTube channel member, hype the video, all of that. And hey, you definitely want to subscribe, because at 300,000 subscribers, I'll be ranking every bench in Lumio City. Let's just begin. Let's talk about these teams. I have three teams I want to talk about today. A lot of these will be teams that you guys are probably pretty familiar with. One, we're going to talk about Cybertron's Sableye Archaldon team. I want to talk about like Rain as a whole, basically, but we also need to talk about the Charizard team that has been kind of dominating this format, as well as the team that just won the first official Pokemon Champions tournament put on by I don't know if it's the Pokemon Company, but some branch of the Pokemon Company. People qualified for Worlds in Pokemon Champions at this tournament, and this is the team that won the whole thing. We'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about the other teams that did well in this tournament, but I do have basically just a few Pokemon I want to touch on. They're the Pokemon on the thumbnail. Let's go ahead and begin. We'll start with the team that won the official tournament. This team is from, and I don't want to butcher the name, so I'm going to call them Soe. I hope that's right. I'm so sorry, guys. I feel really bad every time I'm not super sure how to pronounce the name, but I'll do my best. Soe, they actually won using a team consisting of Mega Floette-eternal, Mega Aerodactyl, Basculegion, Sneasler, Kingambit, and Garchomp. Now, this team is kind of taco hot dog hamburger, or whatever that saying is, whatever King DDD says in that Kirby bit. But it is exactly what you'd expect from this metagame, but I feel like a lot of people are not super caught up on why Mega Aerodactyl is kind of dominating Pokemon Champions right now. Like, there's three really big Megas right now. Originally, like, the thought process was the top three Megas are Mega Charizard Y, Mega Floette-eternal, and Mega Gengar. Mega Gengar, I don't know where that guy is. He's just kind of out of the conversation right now. Mega Aerodactyl is in, and it is in for a very good reason. Basically, Mega Aerodactyl is a Pokemon with 80 HP, 135 attack, 85 defense, 70 special attack, 95 special defense, and 150 speed. Not only does Mega Aerodactyl kind of patch up base Aerodactyl's biggest weakness, which I can bring up right here. If we look at Aerodactyl stats, this is, by the way, a more podcasty video if you guys haven't noticed. Aerodactyl is 80 HP, 65 defense, and 75 special defense. That is not incredible bulk, which is why it typically runs the Focus Sash to guarantee that it can actually do its job. Aerodactyl not only patches up that issue with the bulk by giving it 80 HP, 85 defense, and 95 special defense, making it, I don't want to say Incineroar tier bulk, but it is like in that ballpark of like you're in the high 80s or like high 90s for all of your bulk stats. But the biggest thing that it patches up is the speed. And you might think that like Aerodactyl's speed was not actually an issue with the Pokemon, and that Aerodactyl was consistent enough without needing the speed boost because it could run the Focus Sash. But there's a few really notable things to Mega Aerodactyl that are sort of, I want to call them metagame calls, but they're not exactly metagame calls, because they're just like general facts about it that make it kind of obvious it's going to be good. So I want to point out that Mega Aerodactyl is the fastest Pokemon in Regulation MA, and it is not by a small margin. I guess it is by a small margin considering there's two Pokemon at its speed tier, which are, if we open up MA here, it's Mega Alakazam and Mega Aerodactyl are the two fastest in the format. So you can make the case that maybe Mega Alakazam has a little bit of a place in the metagame, but I wouldn't make that case because I'm not very dumb. But I'm joking. Aerodactyl at 150 speed, the next fastest Pokemon, of course, is Mega Alakazam, which is not very viable right now, as there's no Psy Spam. But the next Pokemon is Potentialmon, Beedrill, then Dragapult, and then Mega Greninja, and also Lopunny. These Pokemon are 8 to 15 points slower than Mega Aerodactyl. This means that Mega Aerodactyl really only has to deal with Scarf Pokemon or like Unburdened Sneasler entering its territory of speed. This means that it is extremely consistent for it to safely get off its tailwind and into opposing Garchomp Aerodactyl teams, which we do see a lot these days. If they are not Mega Aerodactyl, if they're Sash Aerodactyl, not only do you have the bulk to tank a Rock Slide because you have that boost in defense, but also you're not playing a Tailwind speed tie war. You are just naturally faster than them. This means that not only can you just opt to Rock Slide into opposing Aerodactyl, but also you can just Tailwind first and then Rock Slide with your Garchomp, as now your Garchomp will outspeed their Garchomp. The existence of Mega Aerodactyl is actually why we do see a slight uptick in Scarf Garchomp these days and speed boosting Garchomp. They're the only Pokemon that can kind of enter Aerodactyl's speed tier without having to drastically change their play style. This is big because that means the Garchomp will be able to go for a Rock Slide, potentially flinch the Aerodactyl, and then just get rid of their Mega Pokemon. Because Mega Aerodactyl, as strong as it is, it's strong because of its tools and not necessarily because of its damage. So once you remove it from the game, while you don't decrease their overall damage output by that much, you are getting rid of a very frustrating Pokemon to deal with, not only because Rock Slide is a very annoying move in this game that can cause flinches and just ruin your day, but also because they can't reset Tailwind and they lose access to Wide Guard. Speaking of which, we need to talk about Aerodactyl having Wide Guard. Like I said, Rock Slide is one of the best moves in the game right now. That chance to flinch is ridiculous, but also there is just a good amount of Pokemon that like to click spread moves. Not a ton, but like a considerable amount. Floette-eternal, Sylveon, and Charizard Y are like the main offenders, which Aerodactyl can effectively deal with all of them, as they all have rather low defense stats, meaning that Aerodactyl's pretty good damage output can either just deal with them, or if you need to play a little bit defensively, your Aerodactyl will be able to just block the damage outright. That's incredible for it, right? But while I did say that like it isn't known for its damage, we do need to talk about its ability, Tough Claws. Tough Claws is actually quite good for Mega Aerodactyl. It only boosts one move on it, but it boosts a move to a tier of damage, which is worth considering. Let me show you guys something. This is called a damage calculator. If you're new to Pokemon or you watch too much Moxie Boosted, you probably don't know what it is. But Fat Sneasler is a Sneasler that has been running around in the metagame. If you haven't seen that Cursed Cloverbell's thumbnail, take a look at it. But Fat Sneasler is basically a Sneasler that opts to run a lot of defense, and this defense is basically just to make sure that it's going to be able to tank a dual Wing Beat, either from Aerodactyl or Talonflame, but mostly Aerodactyl, as Aerodactyl was originally, it was ran for a couple of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons, beyond the Tailwind and the Rock Slide and the Wide Guard, base Aerodactyl was ran because it was a pretty consistent answer to Sneasler, as you didn't have to deal with the Focus Sash. It also is a good answer to Whimsicott, as Dual Wing Beat will KO both of these Pokemon because it hits twice, bypassing the opposing Sash. Fat Sneasler does not run a Focus Sash. Fat Sneasler runs the White Herb, which is probably Sneasler's best item right now. It means that into Dual Wing Beat Aerodactyl, if they're Jolly, which they have to be, otherwise you're going to lose every interaction against opposing Aerodactyl, they only have a 0.39% chance to OHKO. Basically, they're never going to OHKO you. It is a statistical anomaly, less than 1% chance that they one-shot you with Dual Wing Beat. And this set was popular for that reason, because it was able to still do all the things Sneasler wants to do, double its speed with the Unburden after the White Herb, KO Incineroar, Dire Claw all the Pokemon it wants to Dire Claw, and go for Fake Out. It was still able to play the way it wanted to play, while actually just being able to deal good damage into Aerodactyl. Look at this, close combat with no boost off of Adamant Sneasler is a roll to one-shot base Aerodactyl, and if they take a Fake Out, they're in range. The Fake Out into the close combat is an answer to Aerodactyl. So how do you deal with this? Well, you upgrade. You upgrade. You go to Mega Aerodactyl, actually, because when you Mega, now that Dual Wing Beat is doing a minimum of 128% and a maximum of 153. You're KOing this thing 1.5 times over. You also are fast enough where you're not really concerned about a lot of the Pokemon next to Aerodactyl. You don't have to care about the Aerodactyls, or not the Aerodactyl. You don't have to care about the Sneasler's Aerodactyl partner now, because you're going to outspeed that. And your Rock Slide into opposing Aerodactyl is pretty considerable damage. If we take a look here, Sash, Tailwind support Aerodactyl, looking at offensive Mega Aerodactyl with Jolly, it doesn't even get boosted by Tough Claws, but it is a roll to one-shot opposing Aerodactyl with your Rock Slide, where the opposing Aerodactyl, it's only doing 61%. If you were in the base Aerodactyl off, not only do you have to play the, Wide Guard game or the, Speed Tie game, but your Rock Slides, you need 2 of them to actually KO it, where the, Mega Aerodactyl can actually just kind of do it in one. That's incredible. But not only that, like Aerodactyl is a great answer to Pokemon like Garchomp. Not Garchomp. It can switch on Scarf Garchomp, but like Charizard, it's good into Incineroar. It's like good consistent damage with Rock Slide, and it's even good into like non-meta Mega Pokemon that still see pretty decent results. Some of these would include like the grass types of the format. I would say Mega Venusaur is kind of a anti-meta Pokemon right now because of its like good matchups into the balancy 6 Pokemon that we see dominating the meta right now. And also even Meganium, who is a not super solid or not super standard pick, but like still a very good Pokemon in the metagame because of its good damage off of Dazzling Gleam and its ability to help weather teams out with basically Sun support without having to set up Sun. So yeah, it's able to deal a lot of damage, and just Aerodactyl being able to hit those Pokemon for super effective damage, where that damage is kind of rare right now. That's why Venusaur is so strong. Even like bulky Mega Venusaur, like max HP, the dual wing beat is doing, that's from base Aerodactyl. Mega Aerodactyl is ridiculous. Here, Aerodactyl, offensive Mega. We see it's doing 83 to 98% to max HP Venusaur. If they're not running max HP for any reason, like it becomes a roll to KO, which is really ridiculous. That is one of the fattest Pokemon in the format being taken care of by this Pokemon. Speaking of which, Meganium in that same sort of like area of Pokemon, slightly less bulky though. Like even at max HP, Mega Aerodactyl has a chance to one-shot it. It is a ridiculously good Pokemon, and there's so few answers to it in this metagame that it is just hard to deal with. Like, let's take a look at all the Pokemon that deal with Mega Aerodactyl. Don't say Scarf Garchomp, because getting one Rock Slide is not enough to deal with this Pokemon. You could make the case that maybe there's a chance for Mega Greninja, because Mega Greninja could have a use case in that while it isn't the fastest Pokemon in the metagame, I'm saying that like it's like slow, but not the fastest because Mega Aerodactyl is there. Technically, modest Mega Greninja could use Water Shuriken, and now you have a priority move that deals a decent amount of damage to Mega Aerodactyl. But even in that case, if you do use the Greninja, right, and you go for the Mega, modest, max special attack, 32, and you give it Water Shuriken, because it's a multi-hit move, which means it also covers for the chance that the Aerodactyl is not going to Mega Evolve and it is Sash. Your Water Shuriken is doing 61 to 72% off of 3 hits. It is a possible 5-hit move, but even then, into the Mega, you need all 5 hits to one-shot it, right? People have been running a bunch of random stuff. I've seen people even running Scarf Meowscarada, because Meowscarada is a Pokemon that does have the option to change its type with Triple Axle. And Triple Axle, I believe, is actually a pretty solid chance to one-shot Aerodactyl. If we look at Meowscarada here, Meowscarada, give it a 32 attack investment, give it Triple Axle, Choice Scarf, you'll outspeed, turn into an Ice type. Your Triple Axle is doing 135 to 163 off of 3 hits. You're most likely to hit all 3 hits, but even then 2 hits is still going to do significant damage. You don't even have to be adamant. If you are adamant though, which would make sense, 2 hits will get you 89, but you're probably going to hit 3 anyway. So yeah, you can one-shot Aerodactyl that way. That's why people are kind of looking into Meowscarada. There's also the option for, I believe, Lopunny. Mega Lopunny is kind of picking up because it also gets access to Triple Axle, which can deal with Mega Aerodactyl. Not that it's going to outspeed it. You do have Fake Out and Tailwind next to you, but you are able to deal with it after the fact. You can deal with base Aerodactyl, that's good. But like as soon as they Mega Evolve, it solves a lot of the issues that base Aerodactyl has, and then it's just a really difficult Pokemon to like even deal with. So yeah, like Mega Aerodactyl, this has been the discourse online lately, is that it doesn't really have any true answers at this point in the metagame. And I don't want to say that I'm like super duper agreeing with them, but I will say that if I had to choose a Pokemon to deal with base or to deal with Mega Aerodactyl, I would go with Scarf Basculegion. But here's the thing, it's faster than Scarf Basculegion. If you're unaware, for those of you not aware, Scarf Basculegion is the standard Basculegion right now, except for the few that run Sash. And you can run Adamant Scarf to outspeed most Pokemon, or Jolly Scarf to outspeed Gengar. If you do go Jolly Scarf and outspeed Mega Gengar, you hit 143 speed. 143 speed times 1.5 due to your Choice Scarf gets you up to a 214 speed tier, which is notably just shy of actually outspeeding Mega Aerodactyl. This one isn't even max speed. I believe max speed hits 222. So yeah, Aerodactyl is very good right now. We have to just, you need to know about Aerodactyl and its traits. I spent 15 minutes talking about Aerodactyl alone. That's how strong this Pokemon is. So yeah. All right. So other Pokemon on this team. We have a Cassiberry Basculegion. Now, this Basculegion is actually really cool. It's a bulky Basculegion. And the reason that bulky Basculegion is actually pretty good right now is that a lot of people will assume Scarf on ladder, but of course, this is an open team sheet tournament. Or actually, was this open or closed team sheet? I forgot how they do things over there. It might be closed team sheet. But regardless, Cassiberry Basculegion with bulk is not actually a bad call right now. It is able to tank a Sucker Punch from Kingambit, which is considered one of the best Pokemon in the metagame. It's number 4 in usage right now on ladder, and it's just all over the place in tournaments. Basculegion is an endgame Pokemon, and we see more and more people opting not to run Choice Scarf, because even though Choice Scarf gives you the consistency of being able to outspeed most Pokemon in the endgame, the bulk or the Focus Sash has been taking over the higher end of tournaments, because it means that your Basculegion actually just has more wiggle room, which is really funny. This thing is obviously going to be able to tank a Shadow Ball from Mega Gengar because it has the Cassiberry lowering the Ghost type damage. But also, it's going to be able to, I believe, even eat a hit from opposing Basculegion, if I'm not wrong. Let's take a look at this. Basculegion, let's look at Sowe's, versus a Scarf Basculegion. Scarf adaptability. We see that the Lastra Specs into Sowe with 2 Pokemon down is not KOing, that it is living 2 Lastra Specs and then one-shotting back, because assuming you're in this position, you've probably lost at least 2 Pokemon. You one-shot them back with your Lastra Specs. So yeah, that is one way to do it. This also allows for you to tank Sucker Punches from Kingambit, which is really nice, and it's a lot of wiggle room. Yeah, it's very good. Kingambit is also on this team. If you're not aware, Kingambit is one of the best Pokemon in the game right now. And it is the best Pokemon, one of the best Pokemon in the game right now because of its consistency and its ability to, for lack of a better term, checkmate people. Kingambit is a Pokemon with the ability to Defiant, meaning that if they Intimidate it, Icy Wind it, anything to lower its stats, it's going to get an attack boost. It also has incredible bulk all around and the option to run some speed, so it does benefit from Tailwind, but it also plays good under Trick Room. Its damage output is high enough where you can just get things in range of Sucker Punch, and it can sort of pin Pokemon. Your Kingambit's on the field threatening a Sucker Punch into a Charizard Y, which is within range, and that's not hard to get Charizard Y within range of Kingambit's Sucker Punch, because Charizard Y is not very bulky. And then there's a Pokemon next to it that Charizard Y would normally be threatening. That Pokemon now can move with impunity because that Charizard Y has to worry about getting Sucker Punched. Very strong Pokemon. What's interesting about Kingambit right now is that Kingambit is so prevalent in the metagame that Kingambit has stopped running Iron Head. Iron Head, and let me take a look at usage data here. We'll go ahead and hop over to my game. Let's turn that on. Hold on. Let's look at usage data here. We can see that Kingambit, the amount of Kingambit running Iron Head right now, it's its 4th most used move, right? But that's kind of crazy that it gets dropped for Low Kick so often, right? Low Kick is at 43%, Iron Head is at 69%. The 2 most consistent moves on Kingambit are Sucker Punch, Kowtow Cleave, and then, Protect in 3rd. That's nuts. And the reason it's nuts is because Kingambit is so strong and so common that a lot of players want to answer Kingambit. Kingambit also is a Pokemon that is checked by Kingambit, which is why it has to run the Chople Berry. The Chople Berry is a berry that reduces fighting type damage. So if you end up in a Kingambit war, where it's your Kingambit versus another Kingambit, you want to be the one holding the Chople Berry and the one with access to a fighting type move, because your Low Kick is a one-shot into opposing Kingambit with 32 HP and 2 attack. Or at least that's the ones, at least Sohei's is, right? It's a one-shot into that Kingambit, which is very important. If they're running if you run more attack, it's going to be even more guaranteed. But yeah, and where they, they low kick you and they're only doing 62% because of the berry. So that is really notable. Oh, another thing, Aerodactyl ability, before it Mega Evolves, Unnerve, turns off berries, crazy. All right, Floette. I need to talk about Floette. A lot of you guys are still on Floette-eternal from week 1 and week 2 of Pokemon Champions. That Floette-eternal, crumple it up, throw it out the window. It's Calm Mind. That takes too long. It doesn't do enough damage. Turns out, you could Calm Mind once and end up in a position where it's I two-shot your whole team. Or, food for thought, you can take that turn that you Calm Minded and, I don't know, just Light of Ruin them. here's the thing. A lot of Floette at the moment are dropping Calm Mind for Light of Ruin. And the reason for that, the reason you run 3 fairy move Floette is 1, because it doesn't get a lot of non-fairy moves. It gets grass and fairy moves and like a couple of psychics. But 2, because its damage output is so ridiculously high that a lot of Pokemon still just get 2-shot regardless of if you get +1 or not. And you don't even need a lot of like special attack investment. We can see that Sableye ended up running 5 special attack investment Modest, which is going to be dealing a pretty considerable amount of damage. Let me show you something, right? Into opposing Kingambit. We can use this as an example. Floette, Mega, Eternal, Sableye. Floette is 2-shotting Kingambit, and it has a roll to 1-shot Kingambit with Light of Ruin unboosted. Like, I get it as Fairy Aura, but in unboosted, no Calm Mind, nothing, Light of Ruin is 1-shotting Kingambit. Yes, you take a lot of recoil, but who cares? You got rid of one of the most annoying Pokemon in the format. And this also applies to a lot of the top Pokemon. Incineroar, even the bulkier Incineroar are going to be 2-shot by Moonblast. Most Pokemon in this metagame get 2-shot by Moonblast. A lot of the top Pokemon just don't have a way to deal with it. It's really nuts just how strong this Pokemon is. So why bother even setting up the Calm Mind? Yes, you can play like a slower, bulkier playstyle. That is how I like to play Pokemon, frankly. But yeah, typically you just want to swing. Speaking of slower, bulkier playstyle, Garchomp is going a little bit bulkier these days. It's just a slight adjustment. People like to run bulk on Garchomp because it does make your interactions into opposing Garchomp more consistent. And also it means that like Garchomp's still picking up the same 2 or 3 hit KOs. Like it doesn't really like make too big of a difference. So yeah, we spent 21 minutes talking about the Sableye team. 21 minutes. Yeah, the first team to qualify for the World Championships, technically. Or I guess a few of them qualified for the World Championships. First and second place. But we see, take a look at this. Yeah, I'm going to say that when first, second, third, and fourth place are nearly identical, you got yourself a pretty good team. Now, there's obviously going to be some slight differences between the teams. We can see that fourth place was a Sash Aerodactyl and a Scarf Basculegion. It is a pretty solid 6 that we're looking at right now. And what do we even call this 6? You know what? Comment question of the day. What do we call this 6? What do we call the Aerodactyl 6? All right. Let's talk about Charizard Y. Charizard Y is in a phenomenal place in the metagame right now. It's been in a phenomenal place, and here's the reason. It's Charizard Y. It sets up weather. It's its own. When you're running a Charizard Y, your question isn't typically, what's my matchup into rain? What's my matchup into sand? What's my matchup into snow, if people are still playing that? That's answered by the fact that you have a Charizard Y, which also pairs really well with Mega Aerodactyl. Let's talk about that. Mega Charizard Y is a Pokemon that has a few drawbacks. Its very notable Rock Slide weakness is one of them, and that's why a lot of Charizard Ys will run a lot of defense investment. However, you could also just not and just deal with it in different ways, such as adding the Mega Aerodactyl to your team. Because let's think about it. What does Charizard Y hate facing off against? Opposing Aerodactyl. Opposing Mega Aerodactyl even. So if you bring your own Mega Aerodactyl and a Kingambit, and the problem kind of solves itself. Charizard Y is positioned super well in the metagame though because of its high damage output. Heat Wave is 2-shotting most Pokemon, 3-shotting a few if they're like invested to live it. And Solar Beam is a good answer into Basculegion if you end up in that position. Basculegion is one of the most broken Pokemon in the game right now because it's able to endgame basically everything due to its move last respects, but Charizard can run enough bulk where it will live the Wave Crash from the Scarf Basculegion in the sun and then be able to one-shot it with Solar Beam. But yeah, it pairs so well with Aerodactyl because Aerodactyl does have tools to defend it. It doesn't even need a Mega Evolve technically because it can Wide Guard and Base Farm while Mega Charizard does its thing. But you can even just drop the Mega Charizard in certain matchups. Like if you're facing off against Sand, you could run the Mega Charizard because it's, going to do well into the Excadrill if you manage to remove the Sand, and you have like a bunch of other options for dealing with Sand like Garchomp, Basculegion, Kingambit. But Aerodactyl is just like the other answer. Like, hey, like if Charizard doesn't want to deal with certain Pokemon, here's Mega Aerodactyl. Good game. Yeah. Basculegion, though, like I said with the other team, Basculegion has been dropping Choice Scarf on some of these like tournament-winning teams just because you get more bang for your buck. The only issue with the Basculegion dropping Choice Scarf for Focus Sash is that because it has Focus Sash, it can no longer... By the way, this team won VR. This is David Carrera's team. He won the VR challenge. There's 183 players, but they're all very good if they're playing in the VR challenge, frankly. Not all of them are guaranteed to be good, but I mean, like, if you're playing in a VR challenge, you can expect a high level of play. Yeah, so the issue with dropping the Focus Sash is that you do lose the immediate damage from Wave Crash, as Wave Crash is Basculegion's most immediate high damaging move, as it's 120 base power. Since you don't want to take recoil to preserve your Focus Sash, you do have to switch to Liquidation. This isn't the end of the world, because Adaptability Basculegion still does a good amount of damage with Liquidation. If we take a look here, Basculegion, let's go with Mystic Water, Swift Swim, but we'll drop Wave Crash for Liquidation, and we get rid of Swift Swim for Adaptability. Yeah, and we drop the Mystic Water. There you go, a Magnet. You can see that Liquidation is still dealing pretty considerable damage into like a bulky Incineroar at -1. You're going to be dealing 63 to 75%. If they aren't intimidated, though, like, you're still doing 93 to 110. But that is like kind of the crux of the issue with it. If you're not guaranteed to one-shot an Incineroar from neutral, it doesn't feel like Basculegion. That being said, you're playing this Basculegion a little bit differently. This is not a lead Basculegion so much as it is a endgame Basculegion. And all Basculegion are endgame Basculegion, but you have to keep in mind that this one is especially leaning on that endgame playstyle, because you want to use Pokemon like Aerodactyl, Sylveon, Charizard to soften up the team and then allow for your, I'll call them checkmate Pokemon, to deal with things in the endgame, because as Basculegion loses partners, its last respects gets stronger and stronger. And yes, it is not going to outspeed a lot of Pokemon now, but if you do have a Tailwind up, which is pretty consistent with Mega Aerodactyl, you're going to outspeed the Pokemon anyways, and that Focus Sash allows for you to be way more consistent in the endgame. It is, a lot of the situations that you end up with Basculegion are like a 2v1 where Basculegion can't actually clutch it because it has to lock into a move, and that move, being either Last Respects or Wave Crash, can't deal with both Pokemon at once. But if you're running the Focus Sash set and you have Last Respects and you are in that situation, Basculegion actually, it has a lot easier of a time wrapping up the game, because it can just one at a time deal with the Pokemon. Even if there is like a King Gambit, like, you can play into that endgame situation where they do Sucker Punch into you and break your Sash, but now you have Aqua Jet, and also you're not choice locked, so you can switch up your moves. It gives you a lot more options. Like, you can actually play out of some really tough situations. So yeah, this team did opt for the Sash Basculegion. And we need to talk about Sylveon. Sylveon rising in usage as of late over Mega Floette-eternal, and we're gonna see that going forward, especially in this challenge, which is the most recent of them. This was the 9th and 10th of May, where the Malaysia tournament was also the 9th and 10th of May, but, you know, I called this one the Sylveon tournament. And the reason for that is because Sylveon has been seeing quite a bit of a spike in usage, and there's good reason. Charizard and Aerodactyl, I already said, like, these two Pokemon pair really well with each other. 2 Megas is not a bad team structure. 3 Megas is getting into a territory where you're just foregoing certain items, and what players kind of realized with this Charizard Aerodactyl core, not core because you're not playing them at the same time a lot of games, but like duo that you can put on a team to deal with certain matchups, is that you can drop the Mega Floette-eternal for the Sylveon, and you do end up in a very similar place as far as matchups go, because Sylveon's damage output isn't bad, because you have to keep in mind, right? Let's do some damage comparisons. Yes, like, the Floette's going to be dealing more damage across the board, but if you're mostly clicking Dazzling Gleam, you get some pretty similar damage. Let me show you, right? So Floette-eternal, Mega Floette-eternal, let's go with 25 special attack. I'll go with 32. We'll go with the max damage. Modest Dazzling Gleam into an Incineroar is dealing 35 to 42 with no boosts. If you're running a Sylveon, which actually gets to click a higher power move in Hyper Voice while also getting the boost from Pixelate, because Pixelate is going to be giving you a 20% boost these days, I believe. Yeah, a 20% boost in power, and then you get to equip the Fairy Feather, which is a further 20% boost in power. That means that your Hyper Voice is actually going to be out-damaging Floette's move slightly, I think. Yeah. Pixelate Fairy Feather does 34 to 40%. And then Floette-eternal, what do we say that was? 34 to 40%. It might be like the same. Okay, yeah, the 25 one's the same. So it is the same if they're not max, which a lot of them aren't. But if they are max, they are slightly out damaging you. But here's the crux of the issue. If you're dealing about the same amount of damage with your Hyper Voices and you're mostly clicking Dazzling with the Floette, you sort of end up in like a cost situation where it's like, Which one is more cost effective? Giving my Mega slot over to the Floette, and making it so I can't Mega Evolve my Aerodactyl or Mega Evolve my Charizard, and just leaning into that while having to use base Aerodactyl. Or we can just go with Sylveon, which not only gets Hyper Voice, which is similar damage to the Dazzling Gleam, and also picks up the same KOs because you're not boosting it. You know, you can just do that. Sylveon also gets access to some pretty cool tools. Yawn is one of these, because if you ever end up in a matchup against like a setup Pokemon, you can just yawn them. Now, have fun. You can also force switches with Yawn because you can just put them to sleep. Yawn doesn't get clicked quite as much as Hyper Voice, though. Obviously, Yawn's a very situational move for this format, as this format is very go, go, go. But another really cool thing about Sylveon is it does have a priority move in Quick Attack. And you might be wondering, why Quick Attack? Why would a Sylveon ever click Quick Attack? It's not strong, but it is a good move on Sylveon, and let me show you why. So Sylveon with Fairy Feather is dealing a pretty considerable amount of damage to a lot of Pokemon. And there's a lot of Pokemon in this metagame that run Focus Sash, most notably Sneasler. And I guess we'll just go with Sneasler, but yeah. Sneasler can get knocked into Focus Sash range by partner like Earthquake and stuff. And Aerodactyl is another Pokemon that runs Focus Sash. It can get knocked into Focus Sash with like partner Rock Slide or whatever, or if it just gets hit by a super powerful like, you know, move from Basculegion. So having these Pokemon go down to Focus Sash means that the next turn they're able to do kind of whatever they want. They're still able to go for their Tailwinds, right? And if you're in a position where you have like, you know, a Sash Pokemon like Aerodactyl that can click the Tailwind, your Kingambit, which is usually like your only source of priority on a lot of teams, if you're not counting Fake Out, because Fake Out's a little bit situational depending on like your board state, it's not going to be able to stop that Tailwind. However, Sylveon technically is able to stop that Tailwind, because Quick Attack is not meant to be dealing a ton of damage. It's meant to be dealing 1 damage. And when Sylveon's mostly clicking Hyper Voice anyways, that's not really an issue for it. Like, the move you want to click is right there. And you know, that's why we see Sylveon running Quick Attack in both of these teams. That's also, here's the thing, like I said, Yawn was pretty situational. You can also just drop your... So, how do I say it? Sylveon's version of Light of Ruin is called Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam's a stupidly powerful move on Sylveon. If we look at it, we saw that, like, into Kingambit, the Floette-eternal Light of Ruin was dealing 95%, I think. It's not going to be 95%, but yeah, it's going to be 98 actually. Yeah, Hyper Beam from Sylveon is a one-shot button, and rather than having your Floette take 50% damage, your Sylveon can just not move the next turn, which isn't really as big of an issue as taking that damage. So yeah, I don't know, or maybe it is, depending on like your board state, but yeah, this team is extremely strong, and I wanted to talk about that. Final team I want to talk about. We've talked about like the rise of Mega Aerodactyl and Sylveon being kind of picked up in usage over Floette-eternal. We got to talk about Sableye. Screen Sableye. Thank you, Aaron Zhang, for ruining ladder for a week. I love you. Thank you so much for that. I love that you did that. All right, so here's the thing. Sableye's good. Sableye's good. We have to come to terms with that. Sableye has a pretty wide variety of tools at its disposal, but it pairs especially well with Archaldon. And I would say Sableye is going to drop off the face of the earth on this sort of team as soon as Archaldon gets access to that Assault Vest again, because Archaldon in previous formats did not have it had Assault Vest, which fixed up its pretty low special defense stat of 65. Sableye is able to make Archaldon one of the most annoying Pokemon to KO in the game, bar none, basically, as it's able to set up dual screens for its teams with Prankster, Reflect, and Light Screen, cutting the damage from all moves. And then it's able to click Rain Dance, allowing for Archaldon to not only take decreased damage from Fire-type moves, such as those from Incineroar and most notably Mega Charizard Y, but it also enables Archaldon to click Electro Shot. This means that if you're out of position, a lot of rain teams, they end up out of position against like sand teams or sun teams, and their Archaldon is kind of a sitting duck as it can't click its best move. They might lose their Pelipper early, and that's like a huge issue. Sableye fixes this because now Sableye can just come in, keep spamming Rain Dance, and then you end up in rain heaven. You just end up being able to click it whenever you want. Yeah, It's very annoying. Quash is also a really cool move on Sableye because Quash allows for our Chaldon to play against Trick Room teams and even against really fast teams, as Quash makes it so whichever Pokemon you hit is moving last in their priority bracket. So if the Sableye quashes into a Mega Aerodactyl, per se, you know, let's go with that one. The fastest Pokemon in the game. Now, it's actually the slowest Pokemon in the game. And Flash Cannon or Electroshock, boom, wiped off the face of the earth. Extinct. For the second time. Yeah, that's like incredible. Basculegion, of course, is Scarf on this team. Basculegion's incredible. It's doing Basculegion things. Pelipper is just like the rain guy. But the thing that makes our Chaldon really difficult to KO is not only the leftovers recovery and the screens, but pairing it with Sinistcha with Life Dew, Trick Room, Rage Powder. It's just so strong. Sinistcha is incredible in this format. We have to stop ignoring that. I don't think we've been ignoring it at all, but yeah. We also have the fraud known as Mega Dragonite on this team. Draco Meteor, Flamethrower, Hurricane, and Tailwind. I don't know. I've never been a big Mega Dragonite fan. I think that doesn't hit super hard, but like this team is really consistent. We keep seeing people running Screens Our Chaldon in a bunch of tournaments. We saw Screens Our Chaldon actually take 7th place in the VR challenge. We can see it here. We have Rosella Berry, Light Screen. Instead of actually running Reflect, they ran Will-O-Wisp, which I think is actually a really cool call because it's not a timed thing. It is a permanent cut to a lot of Pokemon's moves, and it's a very physical format, so I think Will-O-Wisp might be a little bit better in a lot of situations. And Encore. We need to talk about Sableye having Encore. Encore's annoying. If you Trick Room in front of Sableye, no you didn't. You're getting Encored. If you Protect in front of Sableye, yeah, you're going to keep doing that. If you set up in front of Sableye, keep going, you know? And yeah, it obviously is still pairing well with our Chaldon, but we see like the Mega Pokemon on this team. There's Dragonite and also Mega Floette-eternal, Sneasler, and Scarf Basculegion. Like this team didn't even need the Pelipper because Sableye's doing more than enough its fair share of work to just carry things on its back. So yeah, but we've been going for about 37 minutes, and I think that's really all I want to talk about as far as like the specific teams. We can talk about a couple of other like really quick things that we saw in the VR challenge. There was actually a Mega Skarmory at 14th place, and I think that's really cool. I haven't taken a look at this team. We see Weak Armor, Mega Skarmory, Brave Bird, Iron Head, Rock Slide, Tailwind. Of course, Rock Slide's like the best move in the game right now. It's on a rain team. Yeah, I guess I see the vision. I'm not sure how good Mega Skarmory really is. It's good for taking out Floette-eternal and Sylveon, I guess, because it ignores redirection. So like Skarmory does have that one little niche. That's really cool. Other things that are strong in this metagame beyond Charizard, Y, and Aerodactyl. We do still see Charizard X making a few notable finishes in this meta. Charizard X with Sneasler, Milotic, Incineroar, Sinistcha. It's very reminiscent of that 2018 Wolfie team. Milotic and Charizard X is quite strong. And I guess Aegislash. We have to talk about Aegislash a little bit. I did not click on, I guess I did click on Aegislash team. Aegislash is in a pretty good place in the metagame. That one's Focus Sash. That's nuts. Usually they're like Spell Tag or something. What's this one? That one's also Focus Sash. Wait, did I click on the same team twice? I didn't. No, they're Focus Sash. I guess that makes sense. It makes it easier to just attack twice with Aegislash. But it is really cool. One of my issues with Aegislash, though, is the use of Poltergeist. Poltergeist is an incredible move, right? But it feels really bad. It feels really bad sometimes because when you click that Poltergeist and it's like, oh, oops, they were Focus Sash too? I can't hit them anymore. But that's why Aegislash runs Shadow Sneak and stuff. One thing I do want to check before we wrap this up is I want to see, without the Spell Tag, because Spell Tag is like the thing that really gives Aegislash its like oomph behind it, that Poltergeist is ridiculously hard to switch in on. How much do you do to Aerodactyl? Because that means it could be a Pokemon to look into, and a pseudo answer to it. We see that Aegislash's Poltergeist is doing 62% to, oh, that's Aegislash. Aerodactyl, offensive Mega. Its Poltergeist is only doing 50%. Ugh. Ugh. What do you mean? Oh, wait, do I have to switch to Blade? Okay, that's why. Yeah, we see its Poltergeist is doing 95 to 112 into Aerodactyl, which it also walls Aerodactyl, so Aegislash is a Pokemon to look out for, I suppose. You also have Iron Head, which you can just one-shot it, but a lot of Aegislash are dropping Iron Head right now because it's not super necessary. You usually just want close combat to deal with opposing Archaldon and stuff. But you could also run Sacred Sword, like that's another option. Yeah, Aegislash is in a pretty cool place in the metagame. It could be worth looking into. But yeah, I just want to do a quick little metagame update video. Let me know what you guys want me to talk about next. I have a few videos coming down the pipe. You can expect a video about anti-meta Pokemon coming up because spoilers, if you aren't aware, and I should have made this video earlier, but Ariados won a tournament. We'll be talking about Ariados in another video. Let me pull up that result real quick. Where are you, Ariados? Here it is. No, that's not it. Where's the Ariados? I don't know. I don't have it. But Ariados won a tournament. I'll talk about it in the next non-edited video. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications. And let me know what you guys want to learn about next as far as Pokemon Champions. I love talking about this game. Bye.